Hello and welcome or welcome back to Meditations for the Racial Justice Journey. I'm Janet Thompson Jackson and I'm glad you're with me today. I believe that wellness and justice are linked. I believe that they always need to be considered together. I believe that a just society prioritizes wellness for all of its people, regardless of race or ethnicity or age, religion, gender, sexual orientation, or immigration status. I believe that everyone who resides here deserves wellness on an emotional level, in a mental level, physical level, a spiritual level. And so that's why we're here. That's why these meditations are important to me, because I believe that on this journey for racial justice, we need to take care of ourselves. We need a space where we can be restored. And that's what I hope these provide. So thanks for joining me. Today we're going to talk about forgiveness, and I'll warn you up front that this is going to be maybe a little bit longer. So we usually go somewhere around 15, 16 minutes, sometimes a little shorter, but today may be around the 20-minute mark. So that's just a little warning. So forgiveness. There are three things that I'd like you to remember as we talk about forgiveness and as we go through this practice. And one is that forgiveness is a choice. It is a choice. You simply have to choose to forgive someone or forgive yourself. It's not about condoning behavior. It's not about pretending something didn't happen. It's a choice to release the hurt or the resentment. It's a choice not necessarily to forget that it happened, but to release the resentment that you're holding about it. Now, choosing not to forgive may be necessary for people at some stages. It may be empowering, or it may feel empowering. And that may be necessary. That leads me to my second point to remember, and that is forgiveness is a process. And sometimes we have to get there to the point where we can even choose to forgive. So this doesn't happen necessarily all at once. It's not necessarily linear. And sometimes you feel like you're taking one step forward and two steps back. So it is a process. And the third thing to remember is that forgiveness ultimately is important for our mental, emotional, spiritual, and sometimes physical health. It allows us to release trauma. It lowers anxiety and even depression at times, studies have shown. So there are some very positive health benefits to making the choice to forgive. So let's get started and start to settle in as we go through this process today. So first, just start to close your eyes or lower your gaze. And maybe just start to breathe a little easier. Just notice your breath. Just bringing your attention to the breath allows you to slow down and just start to relax. Feel your eyes soften. Feel your cheeks soften and your jaw. Sometimes we clench our teeth and we're not even aware of it. Try closing your mouth and separating your teeth just a little bit so that your jaw relaxes and your tongue just falls to the bottom of your mouth. Allow your neck to relax and your shoulders just to fall away from your ears. Sit comfortably in your seat or on your bed, wherever you are. Just allow your body to melt into whatever you're sitting on and to allow that to support you. Feel your body connecting to your seat. Allow your legs to relax, your thighs, your feet. Rest your arms and your hands comfortably in your lap. And now let's take a deep cleansing and grounding breath through your belly up into your lungs, and then releasing through your mouth. Just letting it out, letting the breath out, letting some stress out. Just giving yourself permission to be present in this moment, to leave behind the stresses of the morning, to not worry about what's on the agenda in the afternoon. Just to allow yourself to be present right here, right now. And now I'd like you to bring to mind a beautiful garden. And imagine yourself walking in this beautiful garden. You see beautiful flowers and plants and some trees. It's green and lush. You hear the birds. You see butterflies. It's a beautiful, clear day, sunny but not too warm. Little bit of a breeze, very comfortable. You couldn't imagine weather more comfortable than it is right now. And as you're walking in the garden, you come to a clearing, and you see there's a very large circular path. And on closer inspection, as you get closer, you see that it's actually 3 separate paths. There are these 3 large concentric circles in the garden. So these 3 circular paths, one inside the other, like a bullseye. And you see some beautiful flowers and plants that kind of separate the circles so that you can see that there are 3 separate circles. Beautiful. It looks very inviting. And there's a little opening that will allow you to walk into the outermost circle. So I invite you to walk to that outermost circle right now. And start walking that path in a clockwise direction. As you're walking this outermost circle, bring to mind someone you need to forgive. Someone who has done something to you that you have been holding on to. And I want you to think about what would it be like to choose to forgive that person. Not to become friends again, not to be in relationship again, but what would it be like to choose to forgive that person, to let go of the resentment that you're feeling? What might you say to that person? And what does that feel like to you? It may feel very uncomfortable. And I invite you to just sit with that discomfort for a moment if you do feel uncomfortable. Just as you're walking the path, just sit with that feeling for a moment. And see if you can consider forgiving that person. How might it change your own experience if you were to forgive that person? Would you be able to let go of some time that you're spending thinking about that situation or that person? How might that free you to forgive that person? As you continue to walk in that outer path, among the beautiful flowers and plants and grasses, consider forgiveness. Consider forgiving that person. And this may be the start of that process for you. Or you may decide not yet. But allow the seed to be planted of just considering that, thinking about it. And now, as you're walking in that outer circle, you see a small opening that's going to allow you to go to the inner circle. And I invite you to walk to that inner circle and start walking in the opposite direction, in a counterclockwise direction. And I'd like you to bring to mind something that you need to forgive yourself for. Something you need to forgive yourself for. And try to be gentle with yourself. This may be something that you've been holding on to for a while. What would it look like to let go of maybe some guilt or shame that you feel around that situation? Can you be compassionate with yourself? might you experience life differently if you were able to forgive yourself for this thing or for this event? As you're walking that middle circle, that middle path, consider letting go. Consider forgiving yourself. What would it look like to be able to move beyond that? What would it look like to be able to find freedom from this thing that you've been holding on to? What would it look like if you were able to open your hand and let it go? Again, it's a process. It may not happen all at once. But I invite you to allow today to be the start of that process. And now as you're walking that inner path, you notice an opening to the very inner circle. And you enter that inner circle. And you start walking again in a clockwise direction. I'd like you to bring to mind someone from whom you need to ask forgiveness. You need or want this person to forgive you. And maybe you haven't had that conversation yet. Maybe you have not been able to go to them and say, I was wrong. Please forgive me. Maybe they have not offered their forgiveness to you. What would it look like for you to ask them for forgiveness? What would that feel like to you? Just walk and consider that. Consider possibly putting aside pride and ego, embarrassment, and maybe thinking about the freedom that's on the other side of that, the freedom that's on the other side of owning something that you've done that needs forgiveness. And just allow yourself to sit with that as you walk that inner circle. And now you see that there is an opening that allows you to go from that inner circle all the way back out to outside of these 3 circles. And you slowly walk that path outside of the circles to the outside. And you have a lot of emotions that you're processing right now. But somehow you feel lighter just having considered these 3 areas of forgiveness in your life. And as you walk the path back out of the garden on this beautiful day, you know that you've done some important work. Even if it's just the beginning of a process, even if it's just to the point of considering forgiveness in one of these areas, you've done some important work. And so now you just take a nice deep breath in and let it out. A relief, just knowing that you have made some important movement emotionally. And that work can continue. And you can go back to those circles at any time. You can pick up that process of forgiveness, of forgiving someone else, forgiving yourself, or asking for forgiveness at any time. But for now, we're going to bring our attention back to the room. Start moving your body, your ankles and your wrists, your shoulders. Slowly and gently open your eyes and bring your attention back to the room. Thank you for that forgiveness work that you did with me today. I hope you'll join me tomorrow. Until then, be well.